It's hard to know precisely when it started, millions of years ago, but it did start and continues to this very moment, a miracle of Mother Nature. Water leaves the Kings Canyon, cascades down the west side of the majestic Sierra Nevada mountain range, and heads for the San Joaquin Valley floor. The landscape and habitat, the discoveries and names have changed over the centuries. But one thing has remained constant. The water flows. At first into a great lake known as Tulare, and eventually into a grand mixture of rivers and out to the Pacific Ocean. But in 1947, the direction, the flow of the water, was altered over a 7-year period, harnessed in the name of humanity and property, habitat, and environment. Residents along the river constantly wrestled with dramatic inconsistencies, from drought to flooding. Mother Nature called the shots. Eventually, in the 20th century, with progress and modernization escalating, the river known as the Kings was controlled. Its pristine waters stored up for multiple uses downstream. And one of the most beneficial side effects of the project was peace of mind for an area ravaged by extremes. The U.S. government, with its Army Corps of Engineers, constructed the Great Pine Flat Dam to manage the mighty Kings. And now, while many stakeholders have rights and access to the pristine Kings, nearly 70 years after construction of the dam, one group has emerged, keenly focused on the preservation and advancement of the lower Kings River. This group, with the help of others, guards the water and land use along a 26-mile stretch of the Kings, from the base of the dam, through the foothills, and out to the flatland. The river runs, spilling strategically onto the valley floor. It's a glorious, diverse, and productive portion of the river, watched closely and cared for by newcomers to this river's ancient history. Meet the Kings River Conservancy. Established in 2005.
The Kings River brings life. This.
The board is really comprised of people that have a connection with the river here. Sometimes they live on it, sometimes they're just nearby it, sometimes they just love fishing here. And it's different than maybe another river. Down here, it's much more not only a river for agriculture, but it's definitely a river for the people.
Come out here often?
My very first time fishing this spot here. And I usually go up by the dam, but it's a little packed today.
You lead to the right and I'll lead to the left.
The Kings River is very unique in that we have 26 miles from the dam to Reedley.
Next stop is Reedley Beach.
And we can go from North Riverside all the way down to Reedley Beach.
It starts here, stops here, and rolls
On
on.
the river itself, in this little corridor that separates you from everything else.
The Kings River and its many uses, watched closely by the Kings River Conservancy.
Yeah, I'm going the fast way.
Your donations help preserve the river. Donate at kingsriverconservancy.org.
Long live the Kings!
Flooding destroyed people and property and wildlife for decades upon decades. In fact, one flood in the 1950s caused millions of dollars of damage to construction of the dam, almost to prove the planner's point. Still to this day, there are some who support the natural flow of things. Modernization blossomed when the dam was built, and the ongoing dance between inhabitants and nature flows just like the river.
You have fire, which keeps you warm. You have the sun, which warms the earth. You have the wind, which brings change. And then most important of all is the water. We teach our young people to respect the river. When they come fishing and they're here picnicking, we ask them always, and we teach them, give thanks to Creator, give thanks to Mother Earth, but give thanks to the river, to the water, because it is the giver of life.
The reliable water supply is an integral part of the world's most dynamic agriculture region. Our number one industry, agriculture, is the number one provider of food and ag products worldwide, all significantly saturated strategically by pure Kings River water.
There's something special about the snow melt water in the Kings River. I think especially good for growing strong vines and strong trees. Strong trees and vines grow better fruit. It's always a joy to turn the pumps off and to receive the snow melt water that comes down from the Sierra.
Water from the Kings River is essential for us.
Because it's a desert and it wouldn't blossom into oranges if we didn't have water from the Kings River. We want to grow them all in this texture.
We are really blessed to have the Kings River.
This is one of the busiest recreational rivers in the state of California. That comes with its share of concerns. Safety on the Swift River, for one.
An important reminder as we head into the holiday weekend, the waters of the Kings River may look inviting on a hot day, but they can be dangerous. A group of rafters learned that today when they became stuck in some
Conservancy Board member John Gray is in a unique position to watch what happens on the Kings. He's close enough to keep an eye on things, and indeed, Gray has been known to prevent tragedy on occasion. It's the recreational use of the Kings below the dam that has thousands flocking to the river's edge year after year.
Are you used to it? Yeah.
You have to respect it because it is a large body of moving water.
Jet boat on the river here is the best.
And I always ask them, I said, what are you guys doing here? Isn't there a lot nicer places to stop on the way up? And they always say, absolutely not. We love this Kings River and it's the best skiing in the world.
And while many respect the value of the natural resource, there are too many others reckless. This is where the Kings River Conservancy has stepped in with significant leadership.
Absolutely.
And a major focus.
I took some pictures of that.
Trash along and in the river.
We're out here today to clean the Kings River. As junior hires at our church, we talk a lot about serving. And so just in response to that, this is something that we can do just to come out and serve our community. One is just we love Reedley, we love this place, we've grown up here, this is home, so we want to care for it and make it great.
It's not just people who suffer when the irresponsible users pollute. There is a direct effect on fish and fowl and other smaller habitat along the river.
When people leave their trash behind on the river, I would say it mostly affects the birds here in the ecosystem. As for the fish, when you have microparticles and stuff, they'll often see something floating and mistake it for food.
This is where the Conservancy hopes to make its most significant gains, engaging the youth in preservation of the river. Heidi Eisner has offered her biological skills to local students for a first-hand look at the growth of the river.
Hey, if you guys want to take that outside, you guys can look and see the stripes on the fish. And they get to come out on the trail, learn about the environment, they get to touch, see, and feel things. I'll tell you, we get kids of all ages, and while not every single kid wants to be a biologist when he grows up, even the really young kids to the kids who are in high school all seem to just really enjoy it. I mean, it's a really cool thing when you see these little baby fish that she had in a bucket swimming out into the river to explore like this whole big new world that they're moving off into. And then you have to kind of wonder, what's life gonna be like for the next few weeks as these fish swim off into the river? And will I catch one someday?
Hold your rod tip up. You always want to keep your rod tip up.
Might I actually catch one of the fish that I put into the river?
Okay, because those fish are out there somewhere and we're just trying to find them.
But the Conservancy fills a niche. You know, we started almost 20 years ago. I don't think people understand what a good job the Army Corps does.
While the dam construction used a significant amount of local gravel resources, it by no means exhausted the supply. To this day, there's still enough gravel from the Kings River to go around.
This is Kings River Gravel. I'm a board member of the Kings River Conservancy. We can't tell the story of the Kings River without talking about sand and gravel mining. The Kings, like most rivers, has vast resources of aggregate that's vital to our local economy. Some say it's the finest sand and gravel resources in the state.
The Kings River Conservancy works closely with the local construction companies to maintain a balance of resources and natural habitat along the river.
Turning abandoned quarries to more natural conditions are absolutely vital.
For instance, plans are in the works to reclaim some of Peck Island to create a glorious new home for Kings River wildlife while slowing the use of ag production on the island. The Conservancy is spearheading cleanup of the Kings. In fact, there are a number of plants introduced over the decades.
You have an area that had been cut at one point
that are most unwelcome now.
Arundodonax, or giant reed. So yes, it has some pretty serious detrimental effects. Basically, they eliminate the really beneficial native plants that the birds and animals rely on.
And the Conservancy has sophisticated experts trying to rid the river of the vegetation invaders.
Slowly, we worked away at it, trying to get it to die off and leave us alone.
Now it's a success story as well, whereas it used to be blocking this waterway.
The evolution of businesses along the Kings River has been fascinating. At one time, ferry crossings created wealth for some. Those days have long passed and given way to extraordinary pursuits.
As long as you remain calm, they remain calm.
Yeah, it seems that the river's edge really produces a peaceful horse, that they can move around and not have any worry. I have a thing when I go to the dentist, I can close my eyes and channel the river, and that gets me through the drilling.
From world-class horses to exceptional wine.
Into nice wines. This is the Cabernet Sauvignon.
Some business owners take so much pride in the origin of their products they add Kings River to their name.
Tasty water that we can use without any hesitation to make our wine.
These days, the water turns into wine with exceptional results through modern conservation techniques.
We conserve our water here, and many of the farms here do, with using a drip irrigation system.
Using its pristine goodness in taps and pools and gardens and hoses all over Central California. The water from the Kings is being diverted in different directions, now more than ever before. That's where Kings River Conservancy comes in to keep a close watch, to keep the Kings mighty and pure, and moving conscientiously into the future.
I work with the Kings River Conservancy. We teamed up with the Army Corps of Engineers to put this area in here so we could do outdoor classroom.
They'll be the ones in the next generation stewarding the river and bring children out, teach them to respect the river, make them love it, make them own it, and then they'll grow up to be good stewards.
The Conservancy believes all users of the water have a responsibility to keep the Kings vital and pure. And even in these modern times, an old chant has a renewed meaning. Long live the Kings.
It's right in our backyard. We don't get to go to the ocean, we get to go play on the Kings River.
The Kings River is our watershed. It is the heart. It is the blood. It is what keeps us alive. It keeps the valley alive, keeps us alive, keeps my peaches, my grapes alive. And on top of that, it's stunningly beautiful and natural. I mean, these oak trees around here, hundreds of years old. And you come down to the river, you feel better about life. You feel better about yourself. You know, it gives you a chance to reflect. Look, what's the sound we have here? You know, it's just this wonderful silence.